Okay, so by now we've covered pretty much all of the prime time Irat gamers, all the ones released during that magical time when everybody was making fun of Chris Bores. The next one sort of came out of nowhere, later than people thought it would. Of course, I'm referring to the Irat Gamer Christmas special. Who out there forgot about this one? To be fair, it's not the most memorable. It came out in January, well after Christmas, which I tried to write in as a joke to lampshade it, but it was really because I had a lot of issues with concentration around this time. It was very difficult for me to stay focused on anything. It also came out on that Let's Play channel, which probably makes it harder for people who are fans of this channel to find it. The joke of this episode was that, just like Boars reviews some pretty inconsequential shit like breakfast cereals, the Irate Gamer was going to review Christmas trees, and then segue into Christmas nights into dreams. It's okay. It actually wasn't the first time I wanted to make an Irate Gamer Christmas episode. I was going to do some Santa Claus game from the Genesis or something, but it really didn't give me anything to work with. I had a lot of ambitious ideas for this one that I didn't quite know how to accomplish. Like, I thought it'd be funny if he pulled a whole Dreamcast out of the envelope, but my special effects knowledge wasn't quite that good at the time. It ends with this Santa fight that says, "To be continued," and I did indeed plan on having the next episode follow on from it, but by the time I did put together the next episode, I'd completely forgot about it. Probably for the better, really. Okay, so to the one you actually want to hear about. If you totally discount the Christmas special, there were a whopping 18 months of inactivity between Frogger 3D and Racing Aces. After all the craziness of 2011, I got burned out from internet video. I started working on different things, eventually arriving in some projects centered around music. But I never forgot about this channel. In fact, I was working on the Racing Aces episode all throughout 2012. The script and game footage were done as early as April, but for some reason I didn't do anything else on it until August, when the shots strutting down the street were filmed. Then finally, January the next year, I shot all the rest and cut it together. In a way, that makes it the longest Irate Gamer production ever. Not that I worked on it consistently throughout that time, of course. I knew I wanted to parody the fact that seemingly all reviewers were doing these epic save-the-world storylines, not just wars. They all seemed a tad self-indulgent, you know? They were always the superhero in action sequences with naturally pretty cheesy special effects, and they seemed to detract from the review rather than supplement it. I decided if I was going to do a story arc, it was going to be grounded and self-deprecating, rather than fantastical and self-indulgent. The episode opens with this sequence trying to show that the Irate Gamer made millions off his YouTube career and has since semi-retired and has been partying non-stop. It both sets up the eventual story I was going to introduce, and it was my way of finding a canonical reason for why this episode took so long to come out. He's strutting, feeling good about himself, having drinks in fancy glasses, partying with one barefooted person. Yeah, this didn't come across how I intended. I mean, it's really a deficiency of the amount of people involved in the production. One, and not being a green screen aficionado like some, that I couldn't develop this party atmosphere I wanted. Feels a lot more like an annoying neighbor dropping by than a stranger at a party making a crazy bet. But it doesn't actually make a huge difference, just that someone might be more willing to take a crazy bet at a "let's go nuts party" than in their backyard. He loses the bet and loses everything he's got, and this is how we start our grounded, self-deprecating story. The whole concept for this episode is also another parody of the welfare gamer. I thought his idea of losing everything he had was actually interesting, if not done particularly well. This was my way of parodying, as well as showing how I thought it could have been done differently. I chose Racing Aces because, wanting an obscure game again, it was the first Sega CD game I came across that didn't have a Wikipedia page. Literally, that was my decision process. It happened to be an okay game, not great, maybe a tad too ambitious for its own good, with some pretty awful controls but nice music that I used all throughout the episode. The shots of me strutting down the street weren't done, let's say, very intelligently. I went to a suburb I thought looked nice and found a house I thought looked nice and filmed in front of it. I probably should have gotten permission because when the owner of the house stepped out the door to find a weird kid with paper taped to his shirt pointing a camera directly through their giant ass window, that must have been pretty unsettling to say the least. I wasn't very good with confrontation then either, so I probably seemed super shady as well. I somehow mumbled my way through saying I was a photography student photographing houses I thought looked nice, which they seemed to find a reasonable enough explanation. It's dumb because while I liked the look of the house, it doesn't really look like the upper-class mansion that the story required. I think I assumed that everyone wanted this kind of house so it would get my point across, but it actually looks pretty average and backfires later when he's checking the mailbox and it's clearly a different house. Apart from those warts, let's say, this one I think is pretty solid. I still think the fact that the house is now empty empty, which was really just a junk room with all the shit pushed to the side, is interesting. There are a lot of jokes and most of them land, so I don't need to explain what I was trying to do with them. There are some more subtle ones too, like the fact that the explosion added to the CDI Zelda intentionally drowns out the dialogue to emphasize that slightly Borsian idea that special effects are more important than the story. One of the jokes that I think wasn't properly explained was this one where Joey's in a van. While it kind of works as a Joey joke on its own, the canonical idea was that Joey was sold to the highest bidder along with everything else that Irat Gamer had to sell. Dark, now that I think about it. Hey, at least Bors' demon voice was useful for something. I had people tell me in person that it would have made more sense if the banana and lotion and stuff were strewn all around in a mushy mess on the ground, and they're right. It looks more like he's assembled these, toys, and he's about to use them rather than spending 60 seconds using them and now he's finished. Honestly, it didn't occur to me filming, and I would have had to find a way to do that without messing up the carpet of what was a rental place, but it's true that it doesn't look used like it's supposed to. The email thing really happened, and it was certainly a surprise to receive it. It was also certainly fake. It was easily provable that the from address was spoofed. So why include it here? I'm not sure, actually. I think part of me wanted to acknowledge whoever sent it to me that I did get it, but also a naive part of me really wanted it to be Chris Bors. I received another one from the same person shortly after this episode aired, and I was going to include that in the Halo 5 episode, but forgot, and probably for the best. All it really does is make me look gullible and make Bors look petty. It probably didn't need to be here either. And finally, I've always been a fan of the ending. Once again, at a time when every reviewer seemed to have to fight some character from whatever they were reviewing, I'm very proud of subverting that. The same thing happens at the end of the next two episodes, but we'll cover those later. In the meantime, I know you're expecting a plug for some music of some kind, but no, I've started a new channel just for fun and funny videos. If you guys like the humor on this channel, you might like the humor on that channel.